and this is where I'm going to link it into the Buddhist aspect, is like, Buddhism, they speak of this thing called samsara. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but the idea is like that, we all, everyone, everything, rocks, grass, you, me, trees, birds, bees, they all exist in this eternal loop of suffering, which they refer to as samsara. It's like the realm in which we're all trapped. And only when you understand through continuously going through lives in samsara, you reach a form of enlightenment which allows you to ascend into nirvana, which is what the Buddha achieved, allegedly. I like that because that to me is where I think Nietzsche and Schopenhauer, they're both Western philosophers, and so they're obviously, because of their lack of access to Buddhism as well, which is, I think, quite a thing that stifled Schopenhauer, especially in the latter parts of his life, because he was very preoccupied with Buddhism. It provides, like, what I like about Nietzschean philosophy is that it is very, your life is your own, and yes, it is pointless, but that's exactly the point. So go make something of it.
It gives it agency.
Yeah, it gives you the agency of your own life, which is really, really self-affirming. But I think that that's a one-sided coin, and the other side of that coin is, in fact, the Buddhist perspective of everyone, everything, is equally in that state of suffering, is in that state of meaningless existence. However, existence is only meaningless if you find yourself in conflict with it. In the sense of, like, if you perceive life to be against you, for all intents and purposes, it is.
Boom. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome again to another episode of the Jeoffrey Sarpong podcast.
Oh, is that what you called it?
That's literally what I called it.
That's a lazy name.
It is a lazy name, but it's a name which has a brand.
Yeah.
I wonder whose podcast.
Jeffrey experience, actually.
I wonder what people will think.
Yeah.
Who am I copying when I say that? It's fine. I'm coming for his throne
The
anyway.
Jeoffrey Sarpong family hour.
It's the Jeoffrey Sarpong conversation. No, Jeoffrey Sarpong podcast is good, nice and clean.
Fine.
But yeah, welcome to another episode of Jeoffrey Sarpong podcast. Today I'm here with Kieran. Kieran, do you want to have a quick introduction of yourself?
Yeah, okay. I am the world's biggest Goodnight Pon stan.
Okay.
So that's already put me on a watch list for a lot of people.
What's your passion?
What's my passion? I have a passion for fashion, if you'd believe it. I also enjoy wearing clothes, as most humans do.
It'd be good if you, it would be weird if you weren't.
Yeah. Could you imagine if I was just like, fucking cock out, like chilling? I don't know. I consider myself a pretty, I very much enjoy and advocate for vegetables. I'm a big fan of those. What else do I like? I like books, even though I am famously illiterate.
Yes. That's why I wanted to have you on this podcast, actually, cover how illiterate you are.
Yeah, I was born with 2 left hands and 2 right feet.
You're hiding them pretty well, actually.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I got monkey feet as well, so they're like fingers. And also I'm legally not allowed into the United States for my crimes.
Okay, thank you. That's a great introduction.
Yeah, no problem.
I have to give, none of that, some of that's true, but none of that's true. I am having him on this podcast today because he's a writer and a professor. And one of the aspiring writers, I'm going to give you flowers right now. One of the aspiring writers in the future, one of the big writers in the future. I think that you're going to be hearing a lot from him. Maybe not. Maybe you just disappear and just post
I
your
might
shit.
be a massive failure. That could be funnier.
That would be hilarious after this introduction. But no, I wanted to have him on today because I think he's one of my good friends, very, very good friends. He understands storytelling like very few people I've met. We met on the masters and just clicked. Understood everything about. I think he understands a lot about writing.
That must have been a weird day for you.
Yeah, it was a weird day.
I was just high as fuck.
Yeah, and I came and I was like, oh fuck's sake, I'm in a class with just boy people that just seem like NPCs, non-playable characters, and then I'm like, oh no, this clearly guy who's not here from the beginning. Yeah. He's here and he looked completely out of it.
I was fucking insanely high. I smoked 2 joints before I showed up.
But you seemed pretty like when we spoke, you seemed pretty like there. You seemed pretty aware.
Oh yeah, no, like, well, Okay, I mean, not to be like, drama, but like, yeah, literally like writing literature, that is my everything. Like it is honestly the reason that I do fucking anything.
All right,
like,
cool. Let me start there then.
Okay.
This is not the original plan, but I wanted to, since you mentioned it, talk about your passion. Talk about your passion for writing. Okay. Where did it first stem from? Where did it come from? What does that mean to you? What does writing mean to you?
Oof. Yeah. I mean, writing to me is my entire reason to live, literally.
Okay.
Like at one point it was a large part of the reason that I did not succumb to things like depression. Mm-hmm. At other times it has continued to be essentially like the source of my whole inspiration, honestly, really. Like it really is. People call, what is it, like their raison d'etre, like, they're like the spice of life almost for them.
For living, yeah.
Yeah. For me, it is literature.
Do you remember where it started?
Oh God. I don't know the book that I was reading when it was. It was like some random ass book about like people in a desert looking for dinosaur fossils or some fucking shit like that. It was like a stupid children's novel. But I remember distinctly, I used to like, because I didn't fully understand the rules of like English, I thought that when there was a comma, it was like they could have just kept going with other shit, and they just chose not to. So in my head, I'd come up with like, oh yeah, okay, but then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then I'd go back to the actual story and continue reading it. Okay. So my head would just run away with the fantasy of this story that I was reading.
So you're adding the story more to the story.
Yeah, I was just adding my own nonsense to it. I remember this other time when I was a kid. Bizarrely, this is like not at all related to that, but I remember this one time I had like batteries in my bed for some reason, and I was sleeping on a bunk bed. Yeah. And I remember I knocked them off in the middle of the night. And I was like, it's fine, it doesn't matter, it's fine. But I became progressively so anxious that they were like, they'd shattered and that there was like the gas was leaking, and I'd just die. So I had to get, it was like 3 a.m, I had to get off of my bed and just pick them up just to check. Yeah. I've always been a very anxious little beaver.
Yeah. But I must help. Sorry, again, I tell every guest I have, this is annoying, passing back and forth. It is what it is. It is what it is, and it's part of the process. Yeah. But the question I was going to ask is, like, do you think like the anxious part was the, like, early on, you didn't realize that was what you would need to become a great writer, like in the future, where you, because I think anxious as a kid, you just described is that you're analyzing everything, and you're trying to make sense of it. And like writing is like the one thing that, once you can really master it, it kind of makes sense of the world. So the question I'm after, do you think that that trait that you had as a kid kind of helped you grow up to actually become a good writer?
Do I think that my like severely crippling anxiety as a child influenced me into becoming someone who wants to write in the future?
Yes.
I truly don't know. Yeah. I do think that absolutely, like the desire to create a world, or I guess like a universe that makes sense, adheres to like specific rules, is something I've always been very fixated on. Not necessarily creating one, but definitely like from a very young age I've tried to grasp everything I could about everything, to try and make sense of the quote unquote bigger picture, like see how all of the individual threads tie together to form this cohesive mess that we call existence.
Absolutely.
And obviously I struggled a lot, especially as a teenager, as everyone does. Predominantly with like the realization that I truly couldn't grasp everything at once, because it's impossible. And that actually filled me with a lot of existential dread, because I've always been a very
good old existential dread.
Yeah, good old existential dread. Like I've always been very preoccupied with the question of like, what is the point in my life? Like, what is the point of really anything? From probably like the age of like 5 or younger ish, maybe. I don't know. I do have distinct memories of like crying myself to sleep, because I'd sit there and I'd think about how like I'm gonna die one day, and so are my parents, and so is everyone else I know. And I was like, what? Like, why? Like, what's the point? Obviously, completely inane nonsense for a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
But it, like, that preoccupation with the alleged meaning of existence is one that I do really feel like has bled into my adult life and has become more of an object of obsession as I age. Like, it's just that now the question is different and the answers, well, there are no answers, but there's like postulated answers that are completely outside of my own realm of like what I ever considered, which is what I like. So like I tell my partner this a lot. Like I love it when I'm wrong, because I'm a big old pessimistic, negative ass bitch. And so when I'm wrong about something, it's like, oh, thank fuck I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Because it's like, whoa, okay, cool. Like I don't have to prepare for this horrible shit that's gonna occur, because it's just not. Or maybe I was just operating on a completely like misassumption, because I have a fixation on overanalyzing everything, and I have a serious desire, and I imagine this is like this isn't out of the ordinary for any human. I think everybody suffers with this, but like I have a severe preoccupation with wanting to be quote unquote in control of everything, which obviously is impossible. But I remember when we first met, I used the analogy a lot of like, I want to be in the driving seat of my own car. Like, the car is my life and I want to be the one driving it. In a way, that aspect of like, I would relate that almost to like, not that I'm anywhere near as profound as he was, but like Nietzsche, his whole aspect of like, the self-overcoming. To me, that is a large part of the self-overcoming, is like taking charge of the wheel, being able to control the speed at which the car moves, choosing what lanes you're driving in, things like that. These are all aspects of how you can actually take your own life into control, into specifically your control. But and this is something that I had to directly grapple with a year ago now. There are some things you simply are not in control of, and that is okay.
Okay, I got a question on that then.
Yep.
This was gonna come later, but I think it's good to ask this now about just like meaning in life. You said a lot about just your philosophy, and I know we've talked a lot about it off mic. But I think like just talk to me a little bit about, first of, what meaning do you think life has, how your philosophy has developed from when we first met, and all these people they've been introduced to this like the Buddhist philosophy, kind of like the pessimist philosophy, how it's kind of developed, how the readings that you've gone on over the past year has informed you on your question of the meaning of life. Because like you've said, even at 5 years old you still had that question, and I'm very similar. I've always had that kind of nagging feeling that I didn't understand something, and that gave me a lack of control in life. And so like this whole journey to read more and gain knowledge has been that, to try to answer that question. And like you said, there's not really any answers, just more questions, better questions, but more questions. And it always comes back to that same question: what is the meaning of life? And talk to me about your personal philosophy on that.
Well, it's like that one line. I think it's arguably most eloquently put in that movie you showed me, Waking Life, where was it like as the pattern becomes more and more complex, being is like, well, it's simply drifting along is no longer a choice.
As the pattern gets more and more something.
Yeah,
forgot it. But
like like drifting with the current or something like that is no longer a choice. There you go. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Truth be told, I feel like that, like, there is no intrinsic meaning to our lives. And I know that immediately people are going to write that one off as like, oh, this bitch is pessimistic as fuck. Like, first of all, yes, but also shut up, because there's more. Like, and that's the thing, right, is that like a lot of people will just immediately write that off as like, oh, another 20-year-old nihilist. Bleh. And it's like, yeah, actually, thanks. But also, and this is the real kicker here, your life is fucking pointless. My life is fucking pointless. Everyone's lives are fucking pointless. That's exactly the point. That is exactly one for one the point. Is because, and this is where I'm going to link it into the Buddhist aspect, is like, Buddhism, they speak of this thing called samsara. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but the idea is like that, everyone, everything, rocks, grass, you, me, trees, birds, bees, they all exist in this eternal loop of suffering, which they refer to as samsara. It's like the realm in which we're all trapped. And only when you understand through continuously going through lives in samsara, you reach a form of enlightenment which allows you to ascend into nirvana, which is what the Buddha achieved, allegedly. I like that because that to me is where I think Nietzsche and Schopenhauer they're both Western philosophers, and so they're obviously, because of their lack of access to Buddhism as well, which is, I think, quite a thing that stifled Schopenhauer, especially in the latter parts of his life, because he was very preoccupied with Buddhism. It provides, like, what I like about Nietzschean philosophy is that it is very, your life is your own, and yes, it is pointless, but that's exactly the point. So go make something of it.
It gives it agency.
Yeah, it gives you the agency of your own life, which is really, really self-affirming. But I think that that's a one-sided coin, and the other side of that coin is, in fact, the Buddhist perspective of everyone, everything, is equally in that state of suffering, is in that state of meaningless existence. However, existence is only meaningless if you find yourself in conflict with it. In the sense of, like, if you perceive life to be against you, for all intents and purposes, it is.
Yes.
That isn't necessarily the case even slightly. First of all, no one truly has a vendetta against you specifically, unless they're fucking insane. Or you've done something that actually warrants it. Or, you know, the world itself is against no one. We, like, this aspect of, like, oh, it's me against life. Like, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's, you get to live your life. It's not you against it. Like, the only thing that you're against is your own lack of motivation, or, you know, unfortunately this also bleeds into, like, the wider societal issues of, like, lack of opportunity, you know, wealth inequality, like, racial divides, racial inequality, so on and so forth. You know, of course. But, like, that is very much only a tiny microcosm of the entirety of existence. Like, yes, you know, not to be that guy, but, like, yeah, we do live in a society. No shit. What are you going to do about it now is the question that you should be asking. Not, oh, I can't achieve because XYZ. It's like, you can if you work hard enough. And obviously that's a blanket statement, and it doesn't necessarily adhere to everyone, but, like, there's a point in time where you have to stop making fucking excuses.
Okay.
Like, for comparison, I mean, you know, not that this is even remotely on the same level as, like, for example, someone being born into shit poverty, where they live in a fucking, like, slum or something, and, you know, they never get the opportunity they would have otherwise wanted or could have had. But, like, my mum has pancreatic cancer, and she's going to die of it. That's just a fact. It's a horrible fact, but it's a fact, and it's one that I've had to make peace with. I don't want that to be the case, and it does suck, but, you know, equally, am I going to let that completely derail my entire existence? No, because I still have a lot to do, and that is just part of the suffering of existence for me.
I've got a question on that.
Yep.
Just, you've said that beautifully, actually. I completely agree with everything you said about just, like, finding meaning and, like, the difference between Nietzsche and the Eastern perspectives, because I think you're right. Nietzsche does present this Übermensch, you know, take your life into control of your own. But I think in the West, because we're so, like, individual, and that he does preach individuality, that you don't really see the bigger picture. You don't see the trees. You have to take a step back and realize that not just you have to take your own life into your own hands, but that just you have to have a relationship with life that kind of allows you to be at peace over the long term. And I think that's what the Eastern perspective always kind of pushed. And
I mean, like, we're all in the forest. It's just whether or not you choose to actually take in the trees.
Yeah, like, absolutely.
There's beauty all around us. You just have to actually let yourself see that.
Exactly.
Feel it, really
exactly.
Feel it.
And, like, to even build on from that, you also talked about just, like, dealing with setbacks, and that's the question I wanted to ask, you know, because obviously you have this philosophy which is so, like, deeply researched and deeply understood. How does that help you in life? Just, you know, when you come up against setbacks, how does that help you? How does the philosophy that you've learned? Because I think there's a lot of people out there who think philosophy is just, like, you know, you sit in the trees, you know, thinking about under the shade, you know, Seneca, all this dumb shit. But, like, how do we really kind of, like, take it and make it grow corn, as people would say, you know, make it into actionable things that can help you deal with setbacks in life?
I mean, rather hilariously, well, that was a voice crack and a half. Rather hilariously, I would argue that actually I don't know shit about philosophy. I really don't. I could spend my entire life reading philosophy and still understand nothing.
That's very Socratic of you. All I know is I don't know.
Yeah, all I know is that I know nothing. Because it's true. Like, the more that I feel I learn and absorb, the more questions seem to be raised in my mind, and there's always, like, oh, I think this, but then 10 other things would be like, yeah, okay, you think this, but then what if this happens, and what if this happens, and what if that? It's like, well, fuck off.
How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that with philosophy?
Just try to practice what you preach, man. Like, it's all well and good for me to sit here and be like, do your best in life. It's another thing entirely for me to actually do my best in life. And that's what I'm trying to do. But obviously, as I have been forced to reconcile with, it's not necessarily that simple, and it never is, and it never will be. But why do some people succeed while others don't? Mm-hmm. It's because, yes, there are setbacks, yes, there is suffering, but ultimately you need to have an element of selfishness about you, I will say, like, and not in the negative connotation, but in the sense of, like, there is almost a sense of self-righteousness to a degree of selfishness, mm-hmm. where you absolutely should put yourself first in some instances. Like, you know, I would make the argument that perhaps if I had decided to drop everything and move home and, you know, like, take care of my mom the whole time, even though she doesn't need it because she's perfectly happy doing whatever the fuck it is she's doing, I would be doing nothing but stifling my own ambition and career goals, and ultimately that would make me more unhappy. So it arguably, in my mind, even though this is the ironic nuance of it all, is that, like, I actually find the only way I can help my mum directly is by not wasting my fucking life. Because I very well easily could have just done nothing and continued to smoke a shitload of weed. But what good would that do me? Like, okay, let's go on to that, actually.
Go on.
I have a very funny relationship with weed.
Okay.
And I think, like, for the better part of my life now, because I started smoking when I was 14 and I'm turning 24 in a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I've basically spent the better part of a decade of my life. Yeah.
You need a plaque for that. You know,
just high as fuck constantly. Like, it was at a point where if I wasn't at school, I was fucking high.
Yeah.
And, like, even after school, I was fucking high. Before school, if I had the time, I'd be fucking high. But that wasn't living. Like, I was surviving, sure, but I wasn't living.
Go on that. Explain what you mean by living versus surviving when you're in that state.
Like, it's okay. So I, for various reasons of my own and life experiences, as everyone has, weed became a major crutch in my life. It was one that I directly felt I needed to lean on for a very long time, because I was horrifically depressed. You know, I couldn't, like, deal with XYZ, whatever else. And it was essentially just a numbing agent. And that's not to say that I'm, like, this insanely tragic existence. Like, I'm not. But I think it was quite deeply rooted in a lack of self-preservation more than anything else, is in the sense that I literally did not really give a shit what happened in the long term to me.
Here's a question. And sorry to interrupt, but I thought you brought up a very good topic about weed. I wanted to just take it out there and just expand it out there into society. What do you think? Because I know, like, a lot of people that we grew up with, that we know, get into that, especially at uni, and just kind of just, like, derails their life going forward. What do you think it is that we probably know the answer to this, we've talked about it before, but what do you think it is that kind of draws people to weed in the first place and then kind of makes them unable to move on? And, like, how did you come out of that? Because I know you've recently come out of that mentality. What advice would you give to people just still in that, you know? Just talk about that.
Okay, now see, for me, this is where it gets a bit weird, because I think it is ultimately, like, what manages to convince you to stop doing that to yourself to gain any level of self-preservation, you name it. It's completely different for everyone. For me, it just happened to be that despite for years and years, everyone around me was like, dude, we're worried, like, what's going on? Like, you can't be smoking this much. And I'd just be like, whatever, it's fine.
It's fine.
It wasn't until my partner turned around and went, fam, you gotta fucking stop doing this. And then it occurred to me, like, how I completely lacked any, even though I would constantly preach this logic of, like, oh, self-compassion, blah blah blah, I have none for myself. Like, I truly have none, Because if I did, I wouldn't be doing that to myself every single day at every given opportunity. And that was a very uncomfortable realization for me to make. And it wasn't until I was forced to reconcile with the fact that essentially my own partner loves me so much more and so much deeper than I hold any level of love for myself, that it felt almost like legitimately damning. I was like, what the fuck am I doing to myself? It's that almost, people call it like, divine realization. That was mine. I don't think it's the same for everyone. Okay. And I do think that like a lot of it, the reason why a lot of people fall into that rabbit hole of weed or other drugs, because like if you're lucky, you fall into the rabbit hole of weed. If you're not, you end up on like ecstasy. It's a hellish abyss. At least with weed, I could give the illusion that I was still a functional person. I mean, like, shit, I still got a first on my fucking masters while I was high as shit every single day at every opportunity. How I swung that one, I don't fucking know.
Yeah, you had a job, you had all these things.
I was the most functional drug addict I've ever met. But that doesn't mean that's a good thing. And that is the problem, is that I made out as if somehow that was an achievement, which it is not. But it's more to the point of, like, I think that people, specifically from our generation, the reason why we fall down that stoner rabbit hole is because it perfectly encapsulates a lot of the sentiment of our generation. We are being pushed into a corner a lot of the time in terms of the pressure that we experience from society to be a certain way, to do certain things. You have to have a degree, you have to do this, you have to do that, blah, blah, blah. But that's without any of the consideration that basically everything that society is like allegedly expecting from us is almost completely unattainable. Like, we live in London, but God fucking knows it is impossible to afford a fucking house in this filthy fucking shithole. But somehow we're expected to just like happily jog on and become career people, even though you need a degree to get through the door at anything now, which is also like, what? Like, I have my own opinions on that one. But I do honestly believe like a lot of it is a response to the sheer level of pressure that society is bolstering onto us from a very, very young age, where it's like, unless you want to do these phenomenal things and you actually do them really young, you ain't worth shit. And it really does make you feel like it. And weed almost offers like not an out, but almost like a safety blanket. Like, it's like, oh, I could stress about all this, I could worry about all this bullshit, I could be doing these things, but I would rather be high. And that's sad. Like, that's really sad that, like, not that that becomes an aspiration for people, because it doesn't. Like, for me, it began as a crutch and then it became habitual. But it was, when I needed it, it was a necessary crutch.
Have you heard that song where it's like, have you heard that song? It's like, I was gonna and then I got high.
Yeah. I was listening to that with my partner like every single time.
That's what reminded me of that. But absolutely, what you said is completely true. I think just the lifestyle, and I spoke about this on the podcast before, just the lifestyle that we have in London, the thirst for ambition, and I want to ask you about that also. Just how about like especially at this young age, because we really do not think about the fact that we're still growing, we're still becoming human beings, we're learning how to be human, we're learning how to deal with ourselves, our own traumas, our own things that we want to set ourselves for life properly. And then we have this whole ambition packed on, and you have to kind of achieve by this age. You're in this competitive environment where everyone around you is also achieving, so you feel like you're falling back even when everyone's running their own race. And at the end of the day, this is just life. We're all just going on our own journey. So I wanted you to speak on just like, how do you balance the fact that we know that about ambition, but we're also ambitious people, where we don't want to just be sitting in our house not doing anything every day. We know there's a goal to achieve, we know there are steps we have to take to get there, and we put ourselves under pressure to do that. So how do you balance the pressure that you put on your own self to achieve the goals you want versus the pressure you think society puts on you, which is kind of undeserved, to get the things that they think you should get?
Yeah. Well, that's a hard one.
That's a hard question. That's all your hard questions.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I think that for the most part, it is very easy for, like, I'm gonna go back to the weed thing here.
Go on.
Weed essentially offers almost like pseudo justification in doing nothing, because it's like, oh, well, I could be doing that, but now I'm fucking high. So
Now I got high.
Yeah, exactly. Now I got high. But like, what it gets back to is more that, yeah, it comes down to self-pressure. Like, I wasn't really given any pressure by my parents to do what I'm doing. I just am because I've wanted to since I was like 12. I've always wanted to be a professor. I've always wanted to be an author. I don't know why. I just do. And it's at a point where I'm so laser focused on that I very consciously choose not to get, like, you know, for example, a 9 to 5, which most people would consider like, okay, cool, that's like the safety net. I very consciously choose not to allow myself to have a safety net, so that I can maintain what I perceive as like focus on what I want to get out of my life. Whether or not I'm correct in that, I guess I will find out. But it really does provide more incentive for me to, for example, get into my PhD. It's like, because if I don't, I'm, you know, just going to be stuck working this like blue collar job that I fucking hate for another year. It's like, what the hell am I doing then? Where is this going? But it's also about like, not like, you have to set a bar for yourself that you feel is attainable, and that can be whatever it is. You know, for everyone it's different. It also fluctuates day by day. It's not a hard bar. Like, for me, the hardest thing I can do one day if I'm really fucking depressed is just getting my ass up and brushing my teeth. Sometimes that's all I achieve. That is okay. Other times I get up, I go to work, I work for 10 hours, I come home, I write for like 3 hours, I make notes on whatever the fuck else. Like, I'm focusing on my career path, my goals, because that's what helps me get out of bed. But you need to find those reasons to get out of bed in the first place. And if you ain't going to do it for yourself, no one is going to do it for you.
100%.
Like, for me, I almost consider myself incredible. Well, no, I literally do consider myself incredibly lucky that I have the kind of partner that I do, where for me, it is literally an incentive to get out of bed every single day, because I know that the person I wake up next to gives just as much of a fuck about their dreams as I do. And that to me provides a constant burning incentive. And at times, I'm not going to lie, it has worn on me a bit, because I felt like, you know, shit, I'm just not measuring up. Like, what's up with me? Why am I so garbage? But you have to reassess that in itself, and that's something that I'm also now actively doing, again, since I've managed to stop letting myself get so fucking high constantly. Is that I'm really starting to confront that idea of like, what does it actually mean to have compassion for myself? What does it actually mean to make room for myself? Because I clearly have not done that in a way that was actually conducive, other than just getting fucking high constantly, which wasn't really making room for myself. It was just making room for getting fucking high. And it went nowhere. But, you know, now, like, the minute that I stop smoking weed, I'm incentivized to write, I'm incentivized to read. I feel so much more passion for my own existence. And I do honestly think that's because all of a sudden it's like, I've restored that feeling of like, my life is my own, in my own hands. It's because I wrangled it back from what was ultimately my addiction to weed. And, you know, does that mean that I'm never going to smoke weed again? Fuck no. I'll probably smoke fucking weed today. But that doesn't derail the point, because I'm no longer doing it habitually. I'm doing it purely recreationally. And that divide is one that I lost so long ago. And it's one that I finally managed to reclaim for myself, largely because of them, largely because of my entire support network. And I'm lucky in that sense. Most people don't have a support network like I do. Like, I am a very, very fortunate human. Like, you know, obviously it's easy for me to be like, woe is me, the tragic white person whose mum is dying of cancer, blah, blah. But like, not really. Like, I mean, yeah, you know, does it suck? Yes. But like, it literally sucks for everyone all the time. So why am I going to bitch? Like, what does that achieve? I should just get off my own ass and actually make something of the opportunity that people, my parents specifically, sacrificed so much to give me. Like, you know, I mean, like, for example, I think about like my dad. Like, I was talking to him about this the other day. Like, part of what incentivizes me to get a PhD so much, especially now, is the fact that he never had that opportunity. Like, I could totally have seen my dad as like a history professor, as like a journalist, you name it, because when he was a kid, he wanted to be a journalist. And what's really sad is that, like, because of his own family circumstances, he didn't even get to finish high school because he had to drop out so that he could get a job and help out. And that fucking sucks. Like, my dad was destined for so much more than he was given. But he managed to give me so much in return. Like, the least I can do is give it back to them in the only way that I know how, and that's to make my fucking stupid book and to become a professor.
Okay. I've got a question. I think just to even answer my own question about ambition, I think, yeah, you absolutely said it right. I think, like, you have to be able to balance the ambition that you have in yourself internally, because I think for people like us, if we don't have the mentality that we want to achieve, then we get into our own heads and we have battles of ourselves. You know, over time, we just can't, because we know we're high achievers. We know how much we can do. We know how much we're blessed with the opportunity, like you just said, that your dad gave you and my mom gave me. It's just understanding that these people work so hard for us, and when we're wasting it, you know, it becomes a demon on our backs. You know,
but what is wasting it?
I feel like,
because that, like, I get what you're saying, but to me that actually negates the individual room, where, like, you know, you could make the argument that technically I was wasting my opportunity that was given to me because I didn't go to med school or, like, whatever else, or that I was smoking so much fucking weed for nearly 10 years. But that doesn't retract from the fact that at the time where I was smoking that much weed, I felt as if I truly needed to, just to get through the day.
But what do you think now?
What do I think now? I think I was suffering.
And that's what I mean. So it's like, it's about how you viewed the situation afterwards.
I think I was suffering. I was on survival mode. And I still managed to achieve exactly what I hoped for by the age that I hoped I would, which is bizarre. But straight up, I don't know if I could call it luck, because I don't believe in luck, but whatever happened very much in my favor.
Again, I think,
and a lot of it was because at the end of the day, I fucking worked.
I think it's up to the individual, like you said, and I think some individuals feel like, so for me, speaking for myself, I feel like I can do so much more, and I've always felt like I could do so much more. Yeah. And back then, for example, back in uni, when I was in my room just, you know, watching anime, not doing anything, in that moment I thought I was just having fun. I'm just watching anime. I'm doing things that I like in the moment, getting gratification. Yeah. But afterwards, when I do more, I look back and I'm like, oh, I could have done so much more. And so that perspective that I have now, because of how much I've grown, gives me some understanding about going forward. Yeah. So now going forward, I know that if I'm ever in a state like that and I'm telling myself I'm having fun, then I know that, wait, you actually gotta, like, be self-aware. Are you actually having fun? Is this what you really want in life? I guess it kind of refocuses your perspective on what you want. You know, yeah. And then in the future, when that time that does come again, like inevitable will for all of us, how are you gonna react to that? And I think there's definitely a level of especially with ambitious people, and I wanted people to just understand that the level of seesawing that happens, you go up and down, just because of the fact that life throws stuff at you. And you mentioned, as a question I actually wanted to ask, you mentioned about your partner and how important it was for you to have someone that like that, who was ambitious. I wanted to ask you about love. I always ask people about love on this podcast just because I think it's so important that, you know, the dialogue changes around it. You know, we've become I think we're speaking about it today, we've become very transactional in our way we deal with people. And I still want people to understand that we're dealing with people.
I think that my partner, like, sorry, continue what you were saying.
Yeah, so basically the question I'm asking is just that, first off, what do you think about the concept of love? What's your relationship to just how our society has redefine the concept of love, and just also your personal experience, you know, speak on how it is for you, how your partner and you deal with it differently.
Okay. Well, I think that there's I agree with you in the sense of, like, the nature of love these days is largely transactional. Mm-hmm. What I think is actually that what we're ironically suffering from is too much choice. You know, because there's always that feeling of, like, oh yeah, but
someone could be better.
Yeah, there's bound to be someone better. There's bound to be XYZ. So people don't particularly want to pursue what I consider to be a long-term investment. Mm-hmm. And my response to that is, like, I get where that comes from, but it's lazy and selfish. And what it means to have a partner, specifically the partner that I'm with, is that I won't necessarily put myself on the back burner every single time, but I will always try to make room for them and their feelings. I try to keep them in mind whenever I make any decision, really. But I know that that's the same both ways. because I legitimately trust them. And that in itself, I think a large aspect of loving a person is the true ability to trust them. You're allowed to have doubts. Everyone has fucking doubts. I have anxieties out the ass, but like, that doesn't stop me from still being capable of trusting my partner to know that they won't cheat on me, they won't do X, Y, Z, whatever else.
How do you get to that stage of trust? Because there's obviously a lot of people who would want to trust, but they feel like they can't because, again, the transactional relationship we have with love. And
a lot of it is down to insecurity. And like I say that knowing that I'm a very insecure person, as is everyone. I'm very secure in the person I think I am, but I'm equally very insecure when it comes to other people, because it is largely a fear of vulnerability for a lot of people. It's that feeling of like, I don't want to get invested in this because I know I'm going to get hurt. And I get that, believe me, fuck me. But at the time, like, okay, as just a random point of like, I guess the origin story, like the quote unquote, fanfic meeting that I had with my fucking partner, because it is so funny when I think back to it. So one day, my dog of 17 years died. And I was miserable as fuck, as you can imagine. She was my best friend. I so dearly miss her, but it was her time, and it sucks, and like, it fucking crushed me at the time. Obviously it did, it was my dog, but like, I had work that day, and I was like, fuck it, I was gonna shower. I don't think I'm gonna shower this time. I didn't. So I just smoked weed, and then I went to work. I know. It was a whole thing.
You're going for it, to be honest. Yeah,
it was a whole thing. But while I'm at work, high as fuck, not particularly in the most talkative of moods, this person rocks up, and they're like, they just say some nonsense that I literally didn't even pay attention to, and they're like, can I get a coffee? And I was like, yeah, whatever. I made them a coffee. I charged them for it, and they kind of looked at it like, you're charging me for this? And I was like, the fuck are you, like, get off your high horse. And then they turned around and went, yeah, I'm writing my book. And like that, I was like, book? What is it about? And they were like, oh, it's about these things. And I was like, no fucking way. What genre is it? And they were like, oh, it's about these genres. And I was like, shit, dude, I'm doing this. It's about this genre. Like, we're doing the same fucking thing. And it was just like one after the other. So many similarities. And it was almost like almost electric how easy it was to connect to this person, to the point where I very seldom make connections to people, and I have found that predominantly in my life, especially the people that I have around me currently, they happen to me. I do not happen to them. That has been a running theme with every significant connection I've made.
Why do you think that is?
Because I honestly believe that if you go looking, you will not find what you're after. Because, like, people can smell desperation. You're trying too hard. Stop trying so hard to appease other people. Just be enough for your fucking self. And good people, the right people, will come and find you. However long that might take. You never know, but you have to actually be open for those kinds of people to encounter you as well. And very well, you might encounter them. I'm not going to say that it's a one-way street, because it ain't. But it does fall back on this logic of like, I just like, and also it's not super easy. Like, a relationship is work. It is hard work sometimes. For the most part, it's fucking piss easy. Like, it's like breathing for me at this point. Like, I adore my partner so much, more than I ever knew I could adore a person and love them.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know you're.
No,
you're great. I just wanted to ask, and you said, so what are some of the aspects that you find easy, and some of the aspects you find hard? Just for people to understand that even with a great relationship, and I've seen you two together, you're just like peas in a pod. They're just literally like the same people. It's crazy how you same interests, same. Obviously, you've different. There's certain differences because you're different people, but there's very, very similar. So what are some of the challenges, and what are some of the things that you find easy?
Okay, what I would say, I guess, my quote unquote advice for this one. I don't know why I'm doing the like air quotes so much today. I'm just being a pedantic little bitch, aren't I?
It's the writing, you're trying to make the grammar.
Yeah. It's my natural writer's condescension. You're welcome, people of the internet.
People of the internet.
Yeah.
Gather around.
you want to find someone who is obviously similar to you. That's like, I mean, that goes without saying. That's not to say that people can't, opposites also do attract. But I do think that predominantly what really helped me in the initial phases of like growing to understand the person who became my partner was that they were in a very particular point in their lives where they were quite hell-bent on self-destruction, I must say. And not that whole like, oh, I can fix them, because like, dude, it ain't my fucking problem.
Don't say if Sheila what? Go on, sorry, it's J. Cole.
But it's like you need to look for something that's actually an investment, and an investment worth getting into. But also that if you can find compassion for yourself and overcome your own demons, when you recognize similar demons in another person, because it's never the same. It's always different. It's always its own context. It's always its own individual experience, because that's what being an individual is. But it's about being able to recognize those common threads and not immediately despise a person for the perceived weakness that you recognize in yourself.
Ooh, that's interesting. Go on that. That's very interesting.
Because like for me, that was what really, really helped in the initial phases, was that I was in a point where I felt a lot of self-love, I suppose. Like I felt a lot of compassion for myself. I felt a lot of self-love. That is the only point at which you are capable of being in a functional relationship, and I truly believe that. If you don't have love for yourself, if you don't make time for yourself, you will never make it for another person. And that's how relationships become toxic. That's how toxic relationships begin in the first place, probably. I mean, I'm not a fucking relationship psychologist, and this is just my 2 cents on for a person who's barely educated and can barely string 2 words together. But I do honestly believe that that kind of compassion that I felt for myself, it was honestly like looking in a fucking mirror. Like, yeah, it was a different mirror, it was a different color, everything else, but it was still a mirror, and it was one that made me, I truly was not uncomfortable looking into it.
And so that helps with the difficult aspects.
Yeah, because it's like
difficult aspects, but this helps with
understanding that. Like, we're so similar that it's almost like I can predict how they will react to things. But in the same way that they predict how I react to things. And it's just a case of like actually understanding that ultimately we are both still working towards this common goal of making each other happy and putting each other's best interests first. Because, like, as an example, I don't have to be there for them all the time. I choose to be. I know that they don't need me. I know that for a fact. They'd be totally fine without me. But that also incentivizes me to stick around, because I know that they don't need me. And that actually makes me feel better about myself, because I don't want someone who feels like they need me to survive. I want someone, and I'm lucky enough to be with someone who has their own life goals. We just happen to want the exact same thing out of life, which in itself is like, what the fuck? Like, how did that happen? That was just luck of the draw, really, I guess, if you want to call it that. But like begets like. If you are an ambitious person and you have certain levels of ambition about yourself, but more than that, you actually recognize your own value as an individual and as a prospective partner to a person, you won't settle for less. And you will find someone who is on your level, or what you perceive to be your level.
Okay, I've got another question. And you just came up to me just now while you were just discussing that. You seem to also have, you mentioned about how like you allow people to come to you, and you seem to also have the very good people around you, that I met Gary, I met all these people that you have around you. What kind of advice would you give people to find good friends, to find friends that will, be there for you, friends that are also like you? What advice would you give people out there looking, just going off from relationships also? It's kind of the same thing, but I think, what advice would you give people to find good friends?
I mean, I guess it goes without saying, but like, kindness is kind of a virtue. I don't necessarily know what makes a kind person, but I do think, like, obviously without, there's kind of a no shit Sherlock sort of scenario, but like, if you're a dick, you're going to attract dicks. Like, no shit. Just be your own self. Don't try to make out as if you're this different creature. Just be yourself. And that's incredibly, incredibly hard to do. I don't think about, like, you shouldn't have to constantly worry yourself with, like, do they think I'm weird? If they think you're weird, you probably don't want to be friends with them. Like, you probably are weird. Good. Be weird. Be yourself.
Be weird, 100%.
Yeah, like, just be yourself. Be comfortable in your own skin if you can achieve that much, which everyone deserves to achieve and hopefully can. Like, you know, in whatever form that takes, be your own self. Express yourself how you, the individual, are, not what society and everyone else says that you are.
100%. That's very well put, actually. That's very, very, very well put. I think that's one of the things I noticed about you straight away, that you have this, you know, kind of pull of just you are yourself. You know, just you are yourself, and just like you were just group of like your interests and your music taste and all these things that, you know, about you. You're not like, oh, just some white guy, or, you know, just this white person, you know. And that, you know, you meet people meet you and they just immediately feel comfortable because they know they can be themselves. And that's something that's very important, you know, when you're making friends. Just allow other people around you to also be themselves.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't expect shit out of people other than just don't be a prick.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
If I'm gonna chat to you about whatever the fuck I'm thinking about, I'm kind of hoping that you will do the same.
Yeah, and you just like allow them to just, you know, kind of let their brain just go, and it's just really that's really good for people to, you know, kind of become friends that way. And I know, okay, cool. So just going on another, not really a tangent, but I know we wanted to start this in a certain type of way. We wanted to talk about anime and manga and influences and all these, but just how we always have a conversation. We just go straight into about existence, go straight into about meaning of life and all of that. But anyway, I mean, just to, you know, bring it out, I don't want to just, you know, leave that. I think there's also interesting conversations to be had there. No, you know, I just want a couple quick fire questions.
I mean, dude, if you keep recording these things, I'm happy to keep coming back and talking my shit.
100%, and that's something I was gonna say too. Is, you know, it's like this is something that's gonna be coming more and more. So we're definitely gonna have a time where we're gonna just delve deeper into your writing, because you've said so much today, but we've not even talked about writing, which I know people, they don't know, but I know that's something that's very close to you. I know it's something that they could really do with your perspective on, because not just is your writing amazing, but the way you think about writing, how the depths you go, and all these things, you know.
I like how I opened this with like, yeah, writing is my everything, and then I proceeded to talk about everything
about writing. And I mean, but I to be honest, I do the same thing. I say writing is my everything, and then I never talk about writing on here.
But I mean, dude, that just goes back to the whole argument of like forest for the trees.
Exactly.
Like, it is 100% related to exactly what I want to talk about in my own writing.
Exactly, and
everything I said relates to all of that.
And it's about understanding these concepts that we're talking about. This understanding that we gain from this influences our writing, and it's what gives us. It's actually it feeds into each other, because understanding the writing gives us more ability to talk about these things. But these things also influence our writing. So it's kind of like a snake eating his own tail. But okay, cool. To go off the kind of questions I had, I wanted to talk to you about some of your favorite mangas. And just quickly talk about why they're your favorite mangas. I know we spoke, and I know that One Piece is for you the manga.
Oh yeah.
So go off that. Why is One Piece? Okay, actually, rate your top 3 manga and give me justifications for why each one of them is your favorite manga.
Okay, do I have to justify them first, or should I just list them all off?
List them all off and then justify them.
Okay. One Piece, obviously. Mm-hmm. This is in no particular order, because who cares?
Order. It needs an order.
Okay, fine. The order is number 1 is obviously One Piece.
Okay.
Berserk for sure.
Okay.
And honestly, at the minute, well, it depends on how it ends, because it hasn't ended yet. I would have said Jujutsu Kaisen, because that shit is fucking amazing.
Over Hunter x Hunter, Good Night Pum Pum.
I love me some fucking Hunter x Hunter, bro. I would say, yeah, Good Night Pum Pum is a third. Yeah, like Good Night Pum Pum is fucking nuts.
Okay, go on. Why One Piece first off?
Okay, One Piece to me is a literal masterclass in fiction. It is completely of its own. I know that obviously everyone compares One Piece, Bleach, Naruto. I'm sorry, there is no comparison. There is no comparison. It's a non-comparison.
Yeah.
Like, there is a reason that One Piece is regarded as the king of Jump. It fucking is. It is what every author should aspire to be. Like, I don't know how he does it, but like the fact that Eiichiro Oda has had this cohesive, connected story for literally nearly 26 straight fucking years is insane. Like, and it dude just doesn't stop. It just, like, the hype just keeps on fucking coming as well.
What makes it so good?
Hype is a big factor, I definitely think, because it's a battle shonen at the end of the day. I thought I muted that, and that's its own thing. You know, like, obviously it hinges on the fights, and the fights is what propels the narrative, and I do think that there is an aspect of that makes a narrative work, is because everyone loves a good fucking fight. Doesn't matter who you are. But what I also really love about One Piece is that, like, it gets into some very fascinating ideological debates.
Absolutely.
But without actually beating you over the fucking head with its ideological debates. It brings up a thought, and then across the next, like, 200, 300, 400 chapters, you see as that thought process evolves and deepens and begins to bleed into everyone involved.
What's an example of that?
Okay, well, for example, I mean, this is spoilers for One Piece, but...
It's fine, bro. Spoilers for One Piece.
Spoilers for One Piece. The nature of freedom and what it means to have power in that world. Power is predominantly in One Piece from the perspective of might makes right. What we were led to believe for a very, very long time is that the pirates were the ones who have that philosophy of might makes right. And it wasn't until we were introduced to Nico Robin that we find out actually that whole philosophy stems from the world government and the celestial dragons. Because, quite simply, Nico Robin's people are the classic tale of Icarus. You know, you fly too close to the sun and you get burned the fuck up, bro.
You get blown the fuck up.
Yeah, they literally got eradicated off of the face of the earth.
Yeah.
They tried to do the same thing to Wano as well, which is the crazy thing. But that in itself is its own philosophy. But in the same way, you see how other pirates historically were just stamped out of existence. And the only one that people really remember, is Blackbeard. Not Blackbeard, sorry, Gold Roger. Because he changed everything. He gave people freedom. He literally was almost like the Prometheus of his own story, in the sense that he gave people the quote-unquote fire of the One Piece is real. Go fucking find it. I left it at the end of the world. It's your job to figure out what it is.
Do you think that's a metaphor for...
Absolutely.
What do you think metaphor for?
Well, they've already... Again, this is now further spoilers. It is the truth of the world. Whatever that means. But, and this is what I think the real kicker is, it doesn't matter really what the One Piece is. One, it was always the journey.
100%.
And the journey kicks ass.
Yeah.
And also, it says a lot that the final island is called Laugh Tale, and that the only thing that Roger did when he realized, after like attaining the One Piece or whatever it is, the only thing he could fucking do was laugh his ass off. That tells me enough.
Okay, I want to go on that. Yeah, I think absolutely true. And just thinking about just now while you were speaking, it's such a fascinating concept when you think like the Pirate King, his whole message was that go and find the One Piece. It's 100% real, and it kind of echoes into real life, especially when we're talking about for ambition. It's like there is the One Piece out there. There is the truth of the world out there, and if you go and find it, you're gonna have a brilliant life. And he's making it aware that it's the journey that matters, the people that you get along the way.
Maybe the real One Piece was the friends we made.
The friends we made along. That meme is actually 100% true, because it is true.
It is true.
It is true, because we don't realize it. The destination doesn't matter. It's actually the friends you make along the way that matters.
The friends you make along the way. It's the connections that you forge. It's the connections.
It's the person you become. You know, there's no greater achievement than the person you become trying to achieve the things you want to achieve. And if you do that and you're proud of the person you are, then you get to the stage and you do what Roger does, where you just laugh at it. So hopefully, I just hope that when I get to the stage of where we're trying to go, whatever achievement we're trying to reach, we can just sit back and just laugh at it. Laugh at these moments that we were struggling. Laugh at how big we thought these goals were, how could we never achieve them. And just when we finally attain them, it will be that kind of like realization of just like, oh, okay, cool. This is the truth of it all along. It was your truth, but it was the truth of like your journey all along. And I know we could talk about One Piece, but go on about same thing, but for Berserk. Why is Berserk second, and why is Berserk your second favorite? Tough questions today, brother.
Wow.
Tough questions today.
Berserk. Okay, actually, I'm going to put Berserk in the same vein as another manga, Vinland Saga.
Ooh.
Those two mangas, to me, form essentially like the ultimate depiction of what Nietzsche was talking about the entire time, of, you know, that self-overcoming, and how yes, the world is full of dark, horrible, tragic shit, and seemingly you are born to suffer and then to die. But that is only a microcosm of existence itself. Existence itself is a beautiful fucking hellscape, just like the world of Berserk, just like the world of Vinland Saga, where, look at Vinland Saga. It was literally based on the 1016 invasion, like the Viking invasion of fucking England. And how, they just rocked up and raped and pillaged everything they came across. And it really got down to the core of, the core of Vinland Saga is a true warrior needs no sword. Because what that really means to me is it's like a Nietzschean parable. It's on the same vein as Thus Spoke Zarathustra, when he's like, God is dead and we killed him. First of all, that's a massive misquote that people make all the time. It's a complete misassumption.
There's the end part that no one talks about.
Yeah, exactly.
No war to wash the blood on our hands.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because what it actually means is literally, you are the master of your own destiny. If you want to feed into the cycle of pointless bullshit, you're more than welcome to. But that just means that your existence is just as meaningless as you think it is. To actually make something of your existence, to truly need no sword, is exactly what it sounds like. It's exactly what it means. And it's the same with Berserk. It's like I know Berserk is obviously continuing, but one of my favorite lines from all of Berserk is the last thing that Kentaro Miura wrote for Guts. And that's, I guess all I can do is swing my sword. I fucking love
fascinating
that line.
Fascinating
comparison, right?
You just talked about how the true warrior needs no sword.
But to me, it's because for Guts, that all I can do is swing my sword means all he can do is utilize his life as best he can. That to me is what it means. His life is his sword, not his weapon, the Dragon Slayer. It's his actual existence. Because at the end of the day, that's what really made the fucking difference the whole way through. Was that Guts was just this creature of pure rage, of pure malice and pain and suffering. But ultimately, he's such a layered guy. He's so horrifically tortured by life. He just wants a place to belong with people he loves.
Just wants a hug.
Motherfucker just deserves a hug, bro. And it's that kind of thing to me is truly beautiful. It's very, very few things are like Berserk or Vinland Saga.
And then lastly, go on Good Night Pum
Good Night Pum Pum Fam. Yeah, the bane of my existence. God. Good Night Pum Pum is, to me, one of the most fascinating explorations into what it means to be a person and to desperately seek true understanding from others. Because ultimately what you come to the conclusion of is largely that's completely impossible. There's a very, I don't know if it's a famous line, but it's a line that really stuck in my mind from it. When they're probably 14, I think Aiko says to Pum Pum, to her, true love is true understanding. It's the idea that there is literally not even a millimeter of misunderstanding between two people. That someone will know you from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. True, bona fide, this person knows me inside and out. That is a fallacy.
That could all happen with yourself.
It's not possible, exactly. It's because she never found it with herself. Pun Pun never found it with himself. Nobody in the story finds it with themselves. And that's what I love so much about it, is because it's true. It speaks to one of the most innate human struggles, and that's the awkward fumble to become a person. Is that it's borderline impossible to truly become a person. It's so difficult because it means truly accepting yourself and growing to understand every aspect of yourself. And that's just not possible, probably.
Just to push back a little bit on that, I think it depends where you want to reach in terms of that.
I think what it teaches you rather is that actually the best we can achieve is to hope for that level of understanding.
But I think you can understand yourself.
What makes the difference. Yeah, you can understand yourself. Yeah. But true self-understanding?
But I guess what does it mean to have true self-understanding?
That's the problem.
But that's not a question up for debate. I think understanding of yourself can be where you are comfortable with yourself in your own skin. And to say you truly don't understand yourself is to say that there is another level where you can go to. But I think that's a fallacy in itself.
It's also about the struggle of being understood by others.
And that's true.
And that is the core of Goodnight Pompon. And I would say that the most direct literary comparison I can make to it, at least from Japan, is Osamu Dazai's No Longer Human. First of all, that is a beautiful fucking book. It is horrifically fucking depressing. No worries. Like, it is so fucking depressing. As is Goodnight Pompon. But I would massively recommend reading both. And I would even make the argument that perhaps Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov gets on a similar note of the inability to truly understand others, because we can only work from the reference point of our own self, our own perception of this reality that we find ourselves dropped into. So to understand a completely separate consciousness truly, as Aiko says, is it's not possible.
To go off that, then I know there's another movie that we've talked about, and I'm wrapping these up. Even though we could go on for 5 hours, I know you mentioned let's go on for 5 hours. We could go on for 5 hours, but I don't want to go on for 5 hours.
Episode 1000, we should do that. For
100%.
666, we should also do that.
I don't believe in 666. I'm a religious individual. Come on, let's go.
Fine, but we should make one for 420 then.
We should. Okay, cool. 100%. We're going that. We're going a 5 hour podcast for 420. Just get me up to that level. Like and subscribe, all of that stuff.
Exactly.
But okay, no, okay.
Subscribe.
Let's not get. But so, to what you said was beautiful about just like life. I understand it. And one of the movies that we watched together that you really liked was Waking Life, and also Soul. So just go on both those movies and talk to me about what did you learn when you saw Waking Life about life. What did you think of the movie, and also the same thing for Soul.
Waking Life was honestly one of the most interesting movies, probably the most interesting movie I've ever seen. I've never seen anything like that.
100%.
I don't know, it just really struck me to my fucking core. Because like, it was, you know, the continuous violin playing as well. Yeah.
It's crazy.
That like was almost like perfectly set the tone of like the sheer suffocating, bewildering nature of what it means to be a person and to exist at all. You know, where it's just like this constantly like building nonsense, and it's like you can barely fucking navigate.
It's beautiful.
It is a beautiful movie.
That's what it is. The violin is beautiful, so it kind of sets the tone for what it is to be a human being.
Yeah, and like that one line as well, "Dream is destiny." I love that. Like, such a good line. Because it's true. There is no destiny. There is only dreams. So as far as I'm concerned, my dreams are my destiny, and I don't even fucking believe in destiny. I believe in my dreams. But you could very well make the argument they're one and the same. Absolutely. Then this is just going down the whole rabbit hole of free will and all that shit, which is obviously what the film wanted you to do. But we don't have 5 hours. But yeah, anyway, so Soul as well. Soul reminded me of why I care enough to want to create at all. It completely restored my belief in myself to get where I want to be. But also it reminded me of a very, very real fear that I have of if I get there, will it even feel like anything? You know, it's like I've had this fixation since I was a child. I'm going to be a professor, blah. Like, I'm going to be an author, blah. But if I manage to achieve both of those things, will it even matter? But then I take the argument of One Piece here, where it was the journey. And I know for a fact that when I do eventually get to these places, if I manage to, I'm just going to laugh my ass off. Because what else can I do? There's a really good quote from this one show called Orange is the New Black. There's a character called Black Cindy. She says, in this life, if you can't laugh, what else you got?
That's beautiful. And I think, I think just both those movies, just speaking of what I thought too, I think the intellectual in both of us completely fell in love with that movie, because it kind of really does kind of take you on a journey of just all these different ideas and different thoughts, and just it kind of goes into the human condition in different angles, and it's just so beautifully done, and it gives you kind of a renewal in what art is. And I think I'm definitely trying to kind of capture that in that kind of tone where you come out of it thinking, and that's definitely what an artist wants. I want you to think more when you're not watching the thing.
Like that's what I want to do to people. Like if I manage to get published and all that other nonsense, I want them to come away with questions, not about the narrative, because the narrative should be conclusive. That's the point of the narrative.
It should be very clear, yeah.
But as far as the questions raised within that narrative and the questions that I want to try and push the reader to raise within themselves, completely up to you, bro. That is, and I think at its core, that's what makes One Piece work. Truly,
100%. And to just go off that, I mean, just beautiful segue into one of my final few questions. And I know that you're truly right. We could go on for hours. We've done this conversation so many times. Oh, yeah. I was just sitting back listening because I've spoken to this guy and we've gone back and forth and I've challenged his ideas, and we didn't even get into religion or free will, none of that stuff. We can go on that next time. But yeah, one of the questions I always ask people at the end of every podcast is 2 questions. First of them, also a couple questions actually. First of them is, do you think about your own mortality? Do you think about death? What is your own relationship with it? And you kind of touched on it earlier, but you want to expand more about that?
Yeah, sure. Okay. I think that I'm uncomfortably accepting of the idea of death for a lot of people in the West. I find that my perspective on it is, like I'm like weirdly resigned to the idea that I'm gonna die. And people somehow take that to be like, oh, you're such a negative bitch. But it's like, no, actually. Like, look, death is the elephant in the room that none of us want to acknowledge. For our entire lives, he's right there, she, who, whatever they, right there, staring us in the fucking face. You can choose to disregard its existence for your entire life until you get right to the end, and then you freak out, and all this other shit happens to you. Or you can make your peace with it and get on with your fucking life. And that's what I'm trying to do. Like, I find that, especially with, for example, my own issues, for example, like with my mum and her impending death because of pancreatic cancer, I've been really, really forced to reconcile with death. And the fact that as much as I thought I'd made my peace with it, I clearly have not. I've made my peace with it. I haven't made my peace with her death. And that was the problem. And I think that it's very easy to fixate on this idea of mortality and like, oh, I have to do all these things before I die. No, you don't. Like, because literally you could die at any second. The best advice that I could offer a person, I mean, I'm 23 years old, so take this with a massive pinch of salt. But if you're in a career that is a dead-end job, if you're doing something that you feel truly at your core, like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Stop doing that shit, man. Make yourself uncomfortable. Throw yourself under the bus for a second. Not literally, obviously. Literally don't commit suicide. Yeah, literally too if you really need to.
Yeah, but that's what you like.
Yeah, suicide is lame. But
that's
like,
true.
Yeah, like suicide officially, not cool.
Not cool.
Yeah, don't do it. No. Do drugs though. But
don't do drugs. Yeah, bro. I'm trying to get monetized, bro. What's wrong with you? Don't do drugs. Don't do suicide. Just watch my videos and like.
Don't do school. Stay in drugs. Yeah, like I think that it's drastically important for you to feel in control of your own existence, and I think that like a lot of the time we fall into the rabbit hole of like, oh, I need a career, or I need this perceived security in this life. And in the West there's a particular fixation on that, and I think that that's actually our greatest weakness, is the fact that we're so preoccupied with the nature of our own mortality that it literally gets in the way of us living our fucking lives, and it doesn't have to.
100%. I think there's this quote that it's just like about how death is the greatest of motivators, and that's true because it motivates us, but we don't think about it. We do all these things that just distract us from death. Dopamine hits. We take trips. We just everything we can to just stare at death in the face and just come to acceptance of it. And I think for me, there's an interesting point you make about coming to your own terms of your own death, but not everyone else's. I think I'm coming to terms with my own death, and I think maybe my next stage is come to death with people around me. But yeah, I've come to the terms that like I know I'm gonna die someday, so that motivates me to do the things I need to do and to not get caught up in the games that we play. Games of fear and what's this person gonna think, and they're gonna think that I don't care. At this point, I don't care. You think good things about me, great. If you think bad things about me, hey, why did you do that? Come to the good side. Because I understand that in the end, like A, people don't think about you, and B, if they are, they think it's their perception of you. It doesn't reflect on who you are. And if you're okay with within yourself, then you should be able to do the things that you know you need to do before you die. And even if, like you just said, you don't need to do anything. But some people, like us, you talk about you want to be a professor and you be a writer. That's something you've chosen. If you choose to have your own hill, you choose to have your own journey that you want to go on, then you should definitely go on that journey, regardless of what everyone thinks. And to just build on that, then one of the last questions I have is that what advice would you give to other artists? I know we have barely talked about your art, but I know that what you've said today, everything, that you do have perspectives, and I think it's an interesting perspective. So I want to get your advice on what you would give to other young people that come into this journey themselves. They're feeling doubts, doubts from their parents, doubts from their friends. They're feeling alone, but they don't know how to just navigate that kind of self-doubt. What advice would you give to them on their journey to become artists?
Okay, my 2 cents on that whole thing is basically learn as much as you can about fucking everything that remotely piques your interest. Did I think when I set out to try and plan out my novels, I would be fixating on like learning the fundamental physics behind like volcanoes and whatever the fuck else, like geological formations? No, but it has proven ironically very useful. Same with theoretical physics. If only I'd thought that mattered when I was 15, but it didn't at the time. But now it does, but it only matters for my art. And that's exactly the key thing, is that like once you have that image in your head, if it's clear, if it's vague, but you have an idea of what you want it to be, art-wise, pursue it. Don't let it escape from you, but also especially make sure that it makes fucking sense. Because that was a big struggle for me. It was like I had to very much work almost against myself to try and justify a lot of things. I remember as a kid, I was like, I never want to write fantasy. I never want to write science fiction. It's too much work. I'm doing both of those fucking things right now. Like the irony of it all, because it's literally a case of I was almost afraid of the idea that I would have to spend so much time learning that I wouldn't end up writing, and it's completely the reverse. You learn so that you can write. You learn so that you can paint. You need something to feed into your imagination, or otherwise there's going to be no output. Your imagination is a fucking muscle, and you got to use it. And it doesn't matter how, like, whatever ticks that little box in your head of like, shit, I could link this to this. Great. But you never know where those connections will come from. Like, did I think that One Piece, like, I remember when I was younger, I used to shit all over One Piece. All over it, because it was like the thing to do. Bro, that is the best fucking story I've ever read in my life. Like, straight up. And I will die on that hill. Like, he is everything I want to be. And I mean that genuinely. Like, it is everything I wish to achieve. It's exactly what he's done. That motherfucker is free as fuck. And he just talks about the shit that he likes. He talks about the shit that interests him. And it bleeds directly into his work. Because the one thing that I can say for fucking sure about One Piece is that Oda is having the time of his fucking life writing at week in, week out. He is just having so much fucking fun. And I love that about it. It's so abundantly obvious that like that passion he feels for his own work, for like everything that goes into it, is so abundantly obvious. And you just need to find these things that ignite that passion within you. And that's what will make you into an artist. I don't know what it means to be an artist. I'm not fucking published. I don't even know if that technically makes me an artist just because I am published or not. Am I an artist because I'm making money, or am I an artist because I say I'm an artist? Yeah. That's its own debate. Yeah. But yeah, just like feed into your own brain. Expand your knowledge and expand your horizons. Because the more you learn, the more doors open.
Absolutely. And I think, especially as an artist, you don't have, even I think, on a broader point, everyone can consider themselves an artist. You just have to be able to give them the leeway and get rid of all the things that they think people are going to think, and then just, express. Because I think it is just about expression.
It's really, like that motherfucker in Ratatouille said, anyone can cook.
Anyone can cook. You just got to be, you just got to allow yourself to cook, Just allow yourself to cook and allow yourself to, express. I think it's so important to find your individual self. As you get older, I think people put things in your way. Work comes in the way, responsibility comes in the way, commitments and stuff like that. So if you have no outlet of who you are, then that child that you were at the beginning gets just drowned out and just becomes irrelevant. And when that happens is when you start really having going to war with yourself, and then you meet these people who are bitter because they don't understand themselves. They don't understand their motivations. They don't understand the things that they want.
You become an adult the day that your inner child dies, and that's
100%.
Imagination muscle atrophy.
100%. And I think if you can find a way to grow as a child into someone who just able to just make money of the things you do, or just make a living of the things you do, it doesn't have to be great money, then you can keep the inner child. And I think that's the most important thing about success. Everyone has a different they have different perspective on what success is. I think that's mine, just to be able to remain my inner child, to do the things that I find is fun, all these things, just because what else are you going to spend your time doing? Something else someone else wants you to do? That makes no sense to me.
Exactly.
Yeah, and again, we could go on for so long, and I do.
Your own drum. Don't move to somebody else's.
100%. Beat your own drums of liberation. The drums of liberation are in your heart, and you have to allow. One Piece. Right? Yeah. You have to allow yourself to be able to hear that drums. But yeah, bro. I definitely want to have you on again. Definitely to just run through just so many other things that we could go through. But this has been amazing. Even this impromptu one we've done. I'll definitely be more prepared next time, so we can just even go expanding even more. But thank you so much, bro.
Yeah, no stress, bro.
Thank you so much. That was all. We should again. Okay. There we go. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you guys. Okay, exactly. I hope you guys just make sure that you're here for the next one. You enjoyed this one also. I definitely enjoyed it. It's always great speaking to you. And like you said about the One Piece, to be an order, I definitely see that in you. I definitely see that you have the potential to do that, and that's why I'm always on your case to make sure you get shit done.
Hey man, I'm on it now.
For selfishly, I do it selfishly because I want to read that story.
No, fam, I want to read it too. I'm like, damn.
Yeah, exactly. That would be a good. Exactly.
Shit, I gotta write then.
But it's fine. It's fine. I know that in time it will happen, and this is all part of the process. We all go through this process, and then it's just about just getting. The artistic process is such an interesting one because it's internal, but it kind of has an external kind of feel too. Once you figure your internal, then the external gets easier. And I think you're in that process too. You figured out the internal, now your external is just going to come as an avalanche when it happens. It's one of those things that just happens on its own time. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely look forward to your progression. I'm happy to call you a friend. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. And you guys have a great time. Peace.
Watch the other episodes I'm in.
I forgot to ask even, is there anything you want to say before we close off?
Yeah, sure. Watch the rest of his episodes, and whenever I'm in other episodes, watch those.
Okay, cool.
Those have the most views. Fuck all of you.
Okay, cool. Alright, cool. He's coming for you, man. He's coming for the rest of you, man.
I'm coming for you specifically.
Alright, okay, cool.
I know where you live.
He doesn't know where you live. He doesn't even know where I live. Alright, peace, guys. Love you.
It's true, actually.